stop talking. Right now, in this moment, you are doing something that makes people disrespect you, and you don't even realize it. You think you're being authentic. You think you're being honest. You think you're building connection. But what you're actually doing is broadcasting weakness to every person in your life. And here's the worst part. The older you get, the louder that signal becomes. There are 3 behaviors that make men invisible. 3 patterns that turn respect into pity, authority into irrelevance. You've seen it happen to other men. The guy at work who used to command the room, but now everyone tunes out. Your father, who wonders why his grandkids don't listen. The man in the mirror who can't figure out why younger men don't seek his counsel anymore. These 3 behaviors are killing your presence, and if you don't identify them in the next 12 minutes, you will disappear. The ancient Stoics understood something we've forgotten. They knew that weakness isn't about your body failing. It's about your spirit leaking. It's about the small concessions you make every single day that drain your power so slowly you don't notice until it's gone. There's a story from the mountains of feudal Japan that reveals exactly what these 3 behaviors are and how to eliminate them before they eliminate you. In the shadow of Mount Yoshino, where the mist clings to ancient cedar trees, there lived a samurai named Takeshi. For 30 years, his name meant something. Warriors bowed when he passed. Village elders sought his judgment. His sword had decided the fate of clans. But now, at 58 years old, something had shifted. The world felt different, colder, more distant. It started small. Takeshi would walk through the village market, and shopkeepers who once stopped their work to greet him now barely looked up. His 3 students still came to train each morning, but they arrived late, distracted, their eyes glazed with boredom. Even his own son, a merchant in the next province, found excuses to delay his visits. Takeshi told himself it was the changing times, the younger generation's lack of honor. But late at night, alone with his thoughts, a darker question crept in. Had he become invisible? One autumn morning, after a particularly dismissive encounter with a young samurai who barely acknowledged his presence, Takeshi made a decision. He would climb to the temple where Master Kenshin lived. Kenshin was older than Takeshi, nearly 80, yet somehow the old master still commanded absolute respect. Men traveled for weeks just to sit in his presence. Takeshi needed to know the secret. The climb took most of the day. When Takeshi finally reached the temple gates, sweating and irritated, he found Master Kenshin sweeping leaves in the courtyard. Before the master could speak, Takeshi's frustration poured out. Why do men stop respecting warriors when they age? I have done nothing wrong. I have maintained my discipline. I have kept my honor. Yet I am treated like a ghost in my own village. What am I missing? What have I failed to do? Master Kenshin continued sweeping, his movements slow and deliberate. The old master's face showed no reaction to Takeshi's outburst. After a long silence, he finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. You want me to tell you why respect has left you, but I will not give you answers. I will give you eyes. For 3 days, you will stay in the village. You will observe 3 men, the merchant in the square, the farmer by the eastern road, the monk at the small shrine. Watch them. See how they move through the world. On the 4th day, return and tell me what you have learned. Takeshi felt anger rise in his chest. This wasn't wisdom. This was a waste of time. But he had climbed the mountain. He had asked the question. So he bowed, descended, and began his observation. Day 1. Takeshi positioned himself at a tea house overlooking the market square. There, behind a table piled with silk and pottery, sat merchant Hiroshi, a wealthy trader known throughout the province. Takeshi watched as customers approached, and then he heard it. Hiroshi complained about everything. The morning taxes were too high. The weather was ruining his shipments. His suppliers were dishonest. His competitors were ruthless. His back hurt. His wife nagged. His son was ungrateful. At first, people nodded sympathetically, but as the day wore on, Takeshi noticed something. Customers began to avoid Hiroshi's table. When they had to interact with him, their faces tightened. They completed transactions quickly and left. By evening, Hiroshi sat alone, still complaining to anyone who would listen, which was no one. Takeshi wrote in his journal, "The merchant bleeds his spirit through his mouth." Day 2. Takeshi walked to the eastern edge of the village where farmer Kenji worked a modest plot of land. Kenji was Takeshi's age, weathered and strong. But as Takeshi observed, he noticed something peculiar. Every time someone passed, every time someone asked a question, Kenji justified himself. Why was he planting so late this season? Well, let me explain. The soil wasn't ready, and last year's rain patterns were unusual, and his son had been sick, and the seeds arrived late. Why was his fence broken? Well, you see, the wood he'd been sold was inferior, and he'd been meaning to fix it. But there were other priorities, and it wasn't really that important anyway. Takeshi watched person after person nod politely at Kenji's explanations, their eyes distant, their minds already elsewhere. By the end of the day, Kenji had spoken thousands of words, justifying, explaining, defending, and not a single person had truly listened. Takeshi wrote, "The farmer builds walls with words and traps himself inside them." Day 3. Takeshi sat near the small shrine where an old monk named Soshin tended the grounds. Soshin had been a respected teacher once, known for his calligraphy and wisdom. But now, as Takeshi watched, he saw something that made his stomach turn. Soshin was fishing, not with a rod, but with words. Every visitor who came to pray, Soshin would intercept. "Did you see the garden I restored? Beautiful, isn't it? I've been working so hard. My meditation practice has deepened significantly, you know. The other monks say I have a gift. Do you think the calligraphy on that scroll is masterful? I spent 3 days on it." People smiled. They nodded. They said kind things. But their kindness was empty, obligatory. They left quickly. They didn't return. And Soshin, desperate for validation, chased after the next visitor with the same hungry eyes. Takeshi wrote, "The monk begs for respect and receives pity instead." On the 4th day, Takeshi climbed back to the temple, his journal in hand. He found Master Kenshin in the same courtyard, now raking gravel into perfect patterns. Takeshi felt a surge of pride as he presented his observations. "Master, I understand now. I have identified 3 men who have lost respect. The merchant complains endlessly and drains everyone around him. The farmer justifies every decision and bores people with his defensiveness. The monk seeks approval desperately and repels it with his need. These men are weak. They do not guard their energy. They do not embody strength. I see it clearly now. I am grateful for this lesson." Master Kenshin stopped raking. He set down his tool and walked to a small wooden box near the temple entrance. From it, he pulled out several pieces of paper covered in neat handwriting. He handed them to Takeshi without a word. Takeshi's hands trembled as he began to read. These were transcripts, records of his own words from the past month, written down by one of his students at Kenshin's request. "My knees ache more each year. This generation respects nothing. The village has changed for the worse. No one understands the sacrifices I made. Complaint. I don't spar anymore because I've already proven myself. I train differently now because my method is more efficient. I'm not bitter, I'm simply being realistic about my place. Justification. Remember when I defeated the Ronin at the bridge? That technique I showed you came from my master. I used to be known throughout the province, you know. Do you think my students appreciate what I teach them? Approval seeking. The papers fell from Takeshi's hands. His face drained of color. His breathing became shallow. He wasn't observing 3 weak men. He was looking into 3 mirrors. The merchant's complaints were his complaints. The farmer's justifications were his justifications. The monk's desperate need for validation was his own hunger wearing a different mask. He had become the very thing that disgusted him. Master Kenshin's voice cut through the silence. You asked me why respect left you. Now you know. It didn't leave. You pushed it away. Every complaint is an announcement of your powerlessness. Every justification is a confession of your doubt. Every fishing expedition for approval is an advertisement of your emptiness. The world doesn't respect men who leak. It respects men who contain. Takeshi didn't speak. He couldn't. He bowed deeply, turned, and walked down the mountain. For the next month, he disappeared. No one saw him train, no one heard him speak. He isolated himself in his small home at the edge of the village and did something he hadn't done in decades. He stopped explaining, stopped defending, stopped seeking. Instead, he rebuilt himself in silence. When his knees ached, he acknowledged it privately and trained anyway. When younger samurai disrespected him, he let their words fall into nothing and moved on. When his students tested him, he demonstrated rather than lectured. When his mind reached for validation, he caught it, pulled it back, and redirected that energy into his practice. After 30 days, Takeshi returned to the village. He said nothing about his absence. He offered no explanation. He simply resumed his life. But something fundamental had changed. He walked differently. He stood taller. He spoke less. When he trained his students, they arrived early now, leaning forward, afraid to miss a single movement. When he walked through the market, shopkeepers paused their work and bowed. His son visited without being asked. Younger samurai sought his guidance. Respect had returned. Not because Takeshi demanded it, not because he explained himself, not because he fished for it, but because he stopped leaking and started containing. He became a vessel instead of a sieve, and the world instinctively recognized the difference. That disciple in the story is you. Right now, in your life, you are either the merchant, the farmer, or the monk. Probably all 3 at different times. And every day you engage in these behaviors, you push respect further away. Let's decode exactly what these 3 weakness signals are and how to eliminate them immediately. Weakness signal number 1, chronic complaining. Listen to yourself for the next 24 hours. Count how many times you verbalize dissatisfaction about things you cannot control. The weather, politics, your body, other people, traffic, technology, the past. Every complaint is a broadcast that says, I am overwhelmed by circumstances. Stoicism teaches that complaining is the language of victims. Marcus Aurelius faced plague, war, and betrayal, yet his private journals contain almost no complaints. Why? Because complaining converts your power into noise. The fix is brutal but simple. For 30 days, impose a complaint fast. When the urge to complain arises, acknowledge it internally and say nothing. This doesn't mean toxic positivity. It means saving your words for what you can influence. Watch how people start leaning in when you speak, because your words finally carry weight. Weakness, signal number 2. Defensive justification. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your choices unless they have earned that intimacy. Yet men in their 40s, 50s, and 60s fall into a trap. They feel invisible, so they over-explain, hoping more words will create more understanding. It does the opposite. When you justify yourself to people who haven't asked, you telegraph insecurity. You announce that you're not confident in your own decisions. The Stoics called this seeking approval from the crowd. Epictetus said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." The fix requires ruthless editing. For 30 days, cut your explanations in half. When someone questions your decision, try this response. "I've considered it carefully." Then stop. No additional words. No justification. No defense. Let the silence do the work. People respect the man who is certain more than the man who is thorough. Weakness. Signal number 3. Approval seeking. This is the most subtle and the most deadly. It disguises itself as humility, storytelling, or sharing wisdom. But underneath, it's a desperate attempt to be seen, to be validated, to be remembered. You bring up your past accomplishments. You fish for compliments by self-deprecating and hoping someone will contradict you. You perform generosity or wisdom and then wait for applause. Seneca warned that the wise man is self-contained. He needs nothing from outside himself to know his worth. The fix demands the most courage. For 30 days, give without announcing, achieve without broadcasting, help without seeking credit. When the urge to tell someone about what you've done arises, redirect that energy inward. Build a private scoreboard that only you can see. This is how you stop leaking power and start accumulating it. Here's what happens when you eliminate these 3 signals. Space opens up around you. Not physical space, but psychological space. People stop seeing you as a source of noise and start seeing you as a source of signal. Your words carry more weight because there are fewer of them. Your presence commands more attention because you're not begging for it. Respect doesn't return gradually. It returns suddenly all at once, the moment you stop pushing it away. But this is only half the truth. To truly master the art of silent strength, to understand the ancient framework that makes respect inevitable instead of accidental,